residents facilitated that meeting, did a very good job. We appreciate their participation as well as the band parents. And so we had a lot of questions. Those questions were submitted in advance. Our band director, Brett Tomko, as well as our superintendent, Angela Smith, answered most of those questions. They answered all the questions that were submitted in advance, as well as questions that were submitted through Zoom in the chat comment section as we went along. I think that went very well. I hope that folks were satisfied that we were able to provide those answers as best we could, given the circumstances. So that was, since the last meeting, the major activity that I participated in as a board member. If anyone else has anything else under board member reports for Michelle or Jean?
Oh, I'm good.
All right, we will now open the first public participation portion for the evening. This is on agenda items only. Each participant would have 5 minutes to address the board. State your name and address for the board, and then you can address the board on any item that's on the agenda. Again, there will be another opportunity at the end of the meeting to address the board on any item you'd like to address, but this section is reserved for agenda items only.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone.
What is it?
So if you've got something going on you don't want us to hear, hit your mute, please. John, everyone has the opportunity to unmute themselves.
Okay.
I think we're fine. Nobody says anything, has said anything.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we were leaving this section open for public comment. We anticipated a greater amount of public participation. So I'm going to pause again just to give people another opportunity if they have comments they would like to make on agenda items.
Hi, I just want to say one quick thing. This is Tanya Headley. I'm a teacher at South, and I'm not making any statements. I haven't read the agenda, so I was waiting till the end. But just as a teacher, I think with my own family and concerns, I'm just here to listen, but we just want to make sure we have a place at the table and let you know that we're here to help and support each other. Thanks.
Thank you.
In the field, they stay 6 feet apart and wear masks. Same here in the lab. And while pandemic or not, is to make sure students don't miss out on.
I know this is a little bit awkward with the silence. I'm just going to let it go for a little bit longer because I don't want to stop anyone who has comments that they want to make at this point. So give it for another minute. And if we don't hear from anyone, we'll go ahead and resume the meeting.
Okay, so I guess my concern is if somebody really quick muted themselves, they can't unmute themselves. So I'm going to do it all again, if that's okay.
Okay.
So I think everybody now has the opportunity to unmute themselves if they so choose.
I'm unmuted, so don't yell.
There's nobody there.
Hmm?
Maybe I'm Anybody do anything?
No, nobody wants.
All right, then we will now close the first public participation portion for the evening. Mike, do you need to take a minute to mute everyone again so we can move on?
Yeah, it'll just take a second. Okay, we're ready to roll.
All right, we are ready for the report and recommendations of the treasurer.
Thank you. Before we get to the items on the agenda, I've got some things I'd like to share. The first is I sent the board, I believe it was yesterday, the financial report to the community, which is something I started when I got here back in 2011. And I'm actually going to go through it because I have not given the board a physical copy. I just emailed one. So this report makes the district finances easier to understand and communicates our financial situation in an open and accountable manner. It's got 10 pages, shows my little letter and our little organizational chart. This page shows the revenue and disbursements for the last fiscal year, which ended June 30th, 2020, and the preceding 4 years. I do want to point out one thing. The state on this page, the state revenue, includes the homestead rollback, which is a reimbursement we receive from the state. The next page shows our outstanding debt at the end of the last 5 fiscal years. It also includes the debt which we refinanced. It says refunding there. That's the technical term. We refinanced in October of 2019. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that shortly. Couple of graphs that show where the money comes from and where the money for operations goes. You can see we spend 63% on instruction. 48% comes from the state and federal government. 40-some% comes from the local taxpayers. And actually, as I printed this out, I'm going to have to sharpen those numbers because they were a little hard to read. The next page shows just different graphs showing our funding. You'll see our real estate tax actually has steadily climbed, and that's mostly due to the levy that was passed in 2017. It was partially collected in fiscal year 18 and then a full year of collections in fiscal year 19. See, the second graph shows just our state, what we call foundation payment. That's the direct payment from the state for operations. It does not include the homestead rollback. That's why if you look at those two numbers, they are different. The effective tax rates for operations in Lake County, that shows all the Lake County schools. We are blue. We have been consistently the second lowest in Lake County. The only one lower than us is Lake County, and as I say, we don't have a nuclear power plant sitting in our district. So on this page, it shows expenditures per pupil, and yes, 2019 is correct. The state doesn't publish statewide numbers until December or January after the fiscal year ends. So although we just closed 2020, the most recent numbers I report are usually a year before that. As you can see, we are again lowest. We've been lowest for years. One second. We've been lowest for years. The second column over is similar districts across the state. We're about $1,000 lower than similar districts. Statewide average is this yellow bar right there. I don't know if you can see my cursor. And then the highest in the district is Wickliffe. We are $5,600 per pupil lower than the highest. We're $1,000 lower than the next low in Lake County. So we continue to do what we do with the minimal expenditures we have. We're 65th lowest out of the 608 districts in Ohio. And the reason our expenditures are so low is because we are the 21st lowest funded school in Ohio on a per pupil basis. So that means there's 590 schools roughly that get more revenue per pupil than the Madison schools. There's some assessed values. I don't know if that anybody likes that but accountants. And then our unbundling the tax rate, you know, we have 65 voted mills. You actually pay based on 34.32. So the second or third to last page shows where the tax dollars go. Every dollar you pay is going to some municipality or organization. Most people think that the schools get most of the money, but in reality, we receive between 44 and 47%. The difference is we get a lower percentage in the township because the township needs real estate tax to operate. We get a larger percentage in the village because the village has an income tax. They don't need the real estate tax. So we get between 44 and 47%. So we don't even get half of the money that is paid. The next page shows the financial highlights for 2020, and I don't think anybody will be able to talk about 2020 educationally or financially without talking about COVID-19. This page just details a few of the items associated with COVID-19 that impacted our finances. We took a big cut from the state, $500,000. And if it was at the beginning of the year, it wouldn't have had such an impact, but it came with 6 weeks left in our fiscal year. So they chopped out $500,000 over basically a 6-week period. We were able to save money on the contracts, and I've talked to the board about the savings before and what other money that it's cost us. And the CARES Act through the CARES Act through the state, we were given $353,000. So we use that to offset the deficit. Finally, the final item on there is we took advantage of the historically low interest rates back in October of 2019. We refinanced a portion of the debt that was issued in 2010, which was used in turn, that debt was used to pay for the 2 new buildings. With this refinancing, we will save the taxpayers almost $1.3 million over the life of the bond, and we will pay them off 1 year early. So the millage associated with that bond will stop 1 year early. So I'm going to have this report published on the website and the Protect and Preserve Facebook page. I don't know whether we'll put it out on other places. Typically, I print a bunch and bring them to the library, but since nobody can get in the library, I don't think that that's such a good use of paper at this point.
Mike,
Yes.
we could probably also shoot it out through the Good News that has a pretty good distribution.
Okay, that's fine. That would be great. So another item that happened last week is we got additional coronavirus relief fund allocation. It's an allocation of new funds to help cover the cost of personal protection equipment, or PPE as we all know it. The allocation of the district is about $150,000. These funds are more restrictive than the other CARES money that I just talked about. They'll need to be used for expenses being incurred directly related to COVID-19. We've been planning the purchase of PPE since mid-May. Most of the stuff's being delivered to my house because there's nobody in the buildings. And honestly, my wife is sick of looking at masks and soap dispensers and everything else we've been getting. But I do have a list of the PPE that we do have. You know, we always had the 2 Clorox 360 electrostatic sprayers. We actually loaned those to our first responders in Madison, but we have them back. 24 gallons of solution to go in those. We also purchased 7 backpack electrostatic sprayers. And the advantage of this sprayer is it sticks to hard to reach surfaces with the disinfectant. So it'll get under desks. It'll get in areas that you just can't get by hand spraying. And I'm sure Angela will either talk tonight or in the future about our plans for the use of those. We have 56 cases of hand wipes, 220 gallons of hand soap. Next week delivered, we'll have 660 gallons of hand sanitizer, 8,500 adult masks and 500 children's masks. Those are disposable, 280 face shields, sneeze guards in all the offices. We have 400 1-quart sanitizer sprays. And in that, with that, we have enough mixture to make 4,000 gallons of that sanitizer to be sprayed. 600 pounds of cotton rags for cleaning, 13,000 gloves between large and extra large. And we are retrofitting the drinking fountains to become water bottle filling stations. So the kids aren't drinking from a fountain, they can fill up water bottles. And then finally, we've purchased 40 infrared thermometers. We're not done. I anticipate we're gonna end up spending well over the 150,000. But that's what the money's for. It's to keep the staff and students safe. So that's what it's for, and that's what we're gonna use it for. So does the board have any questions on that?
I don't have any questions, Mike, but I always think this is a good opportunity when we have this financial report for you to point out, and I know you said it, but I'm going to highlight it. You know, whether you're talking about revenues per pupil or expenditures per pupil, these are some pretty basic numbers for people to be able to digest. If we're talking about the amount of revenue that we have per student, it's very simple. We take all the federal, state, and local dollars that we have, no matter what tax base those are coming from. We add them up and we divide by the number of students. And we are consistently in the bottom 25 districts in the state of Ohio for the amount of money that we receive. Now to put that in perspective, there are over 600 school districts in the state of Ohio. So, and I don't know how to say it any differently than this, but we're a poor school district in Ohio. So when people hear that, they probably think of inner city school districts, whether that be Cleveland or Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus. But, you know, we don't have a lot of revenue per student. And so, you know, Mike often says, and I hate to quote Mike, but I'll go ahead and do it, that we don't have an expenditure problem in the district. We have a revenue problem in the district. And that's that we just don't get a lot of money per student. Now, that doesn't mean that people don't pay their fair share of taxes, whether that be their local property taxes or whether they're getting state and federal taxes. But the reality is that when you compare us to the rest of the districts in Lake County, and you compare us to the rest of the districts in the state, we have very little revenue. So we have to make all of this happen, whether it be paying our teachers, whether that be buying all of this PPE and disinfectant and everything for COVID or whatever else we're dealing with. We're doing that on a shoestring budget compared to other districts. So I just think it never hurts for us to point that out. No, we're not running a levy right now. You know, we're not asking for additional revenue, but the reality is we have to figure all that out with less revenue than most districts in the state of Ohio. And I don't think your average Madison resident would understand that. I've talked to a lot of people since I've been on the board over the last 5 years, and I don't get the sense that people understand that as much as we try to put that out to the public. We passed that levy, I think you said in 17, Mike.
Yes.
And that was the first time in 28 years that we had passed new money in Madison. And when you look at most districts, they pass new money every 4 to 5 years. We hadn't done that in many years. Again, I'm not hawking a levy right now. I'm just wanting to point out, you know, some facts that I don't think a lot of people realize out of your report. So I don't mean to interrupt, but, well, I interrupted. So there you go.
So anything else before I got one more item. Finally, there's a resolution to purchase a new bus at the cost of $86,422. I actually thought I sent the information to Susan about the bus and that advance resolution, but I found out it got caught in the middle of all the emails I was sending to the auditor. So I'm sorry it didn't show up until yesterday. So they were, it's from Myers Equipment. We've bought buses from them before. They were the lowest bidder. We are legally required to bid buses, and we bid them through the Ohio School Council in the spring of this year. The good news is just about half of the cost of the bus will be funded through the Ohio Bus Purchase Program. For the first time in a long time, the state allocated money to districts for the purchase of a bus. I was really nervous coming down to the end of the fiscal year. I thought this was one of the things the governor was going to yank back. So we could not go and buy a bus until they formally approved the money. So we got the money approved last week, and we're going to order the bus tomorrow. Purchase order is ready to go, and tomorrow morning it'll be shipped out. And hopefully we'll have the bus by the start of school next year. It just takes that long to get a bus built. So, and while I'm talking, the advance from the Fund 001 to Fund 024, we allow employees to participate in a flexible spending account and with dependent care. This fronts all the money to that account, and then the employees pay it back out of their paychecks over the next 12 months. So it doesn't cost the board anything. It's employee money, but we have to front it in case somebody, because they're allowed to use all the money on the first day it's available. So if there's no questions on what I talked about, I'm going to go through the items in the agenda. The first is to approve the financial reports for all funds, fund-to-fund transfer report, and the check payment register for June 2020.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Vote is 3-0. The next is to approve an advance from Fund 001 General Fund to Fund 024 Self-Insurance Fund in the amount of $29,010.
I'll move.
I'll move. I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Vote is 3-0. The next is to accept the bus bid for Myers Equipment Corporation for a school bus body and chassis for their cooperative purchase under the board's participation in the Ohio Schools Council program, and to authorize and direct the superintendent or designee to purchase one 78-passenger transit-style bus for Myers Equipment Corporation. That'll total cost not to exceed $86,422 per ORC section 3327.08.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
John Douglas,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Vote is 3-0. By the way, this isn't the only bus we're going to be purchasing this year. We've been in conversations with Orange City School District. They have 3 used buses, and before they traded them in, they called us and asked us if we wanted them. We do have a levy, the permanent improvement levy, but it isn't enough to buy 2 buses every year. So we can buy 1 new, and we have to go out and scrounge for used buses to keep our fleet on the road. So as soon as they get theirs delivered, we'll be buying theirs. They're used. They're over 100,000 miles each. We'll get a few years out of them, but they're only $3,500. So the next item is to accept the following donations. A generous donation of 6 tons of washed gravel from Star Excavating to the Madison High School Ecology Department to be used for class projects. Donation of native plants from Klein Nurseries, Inc. to the Madison High School Ecology Department to be used for the Monarch Way Station. Donation of 10 cubic yards of sweet peat, mulch and soil amendment from Sweet Peat, Ohio by Urban Organics to the Madison High School Ecology Department to be used for class projects. Donation of 4 yards of double shredded natural mulch from McAllister's Landscaping and Supply to the Madison High School Ecology Department to be used for class projects. Donation of a gift card from Walmart to the Madison High School Ecology Department to be used for garden supplies. Donation of a flat of vegetable plants from Sabo's Woodside Nurseries to the Madison High School Ecology Department to be used in the garden. Donation of landscape fabric and pins from Cherokee Manufacturing LLC to the Madison High School Ecology Department to be used for class projects. Donation of 300 tons of limestone screening and delivery, and 3 convertible lifetime benches from Carmoose Grand River Operations to the Madison High School Ecology Department to be used in the bee yard and the outdoor classroom, and donation of bee yard fence with gate and installation from Dudalis family to the Madison High School Ecology Department to be used for the bee yard.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
That's really some awesome donations that we got. Thank you very much to the community that's provided us with those.
Roll call.
John Douglas,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
vote is 3-0. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Mike, report to the administrative team.
Would be me, right? So I'd like to start by thanking people who has helped us to work through the plan, talked through the plan, all the phone calls, questions, those types of things. And it's still a work in progress because, as I said in my opening statement, life is changing as we speak. I do want to go through some of the key plans and some of the questions that we've been asked and, you know, talk in those specifics this evening. I'm sure there's going to still be more questions. And I am hosting staff meetings with each building over the next week and a half to go through those. We're bringing teachers in to help plan the instructional days and those types of things and what that will look like and really firm that up. Because as I've said to many parents, I can give them the outline and I could talk about secondary, but the elementary teachers, they're really going to have to make the online school work for our elementary students in a way that I think supports solid learning. And one of the things that we took away from the survey of both students or both staff and families when we surveyed them this past June was that the online component needs to change and there needs to be more rigor. So that is one of the questions I've gotten over and over again, that I know it's in the plan, but there's so many details in that plan that it sometimes gets missed. But online virtual learning will be different. It will be dedicated online learning. That means there will be a teacher assigned to a group of students, whether at the elementary or at the secondary level. At the secondary level, we're plugging it into the schedules. At the elementary level, we're going to have teachers meet with students, do core instruction. Students probably take a break. The teacher comes back with another time to meet with the students to answer questions so that the elementary students aren't going to be in front of a computer for 5.5 hours. Because I can tell you that on days that I'm in front of my computer for 12 hours, it gets to me a little bit. So elementary kids, they need movement, they need breaks, but we're gonna work with our experts to help plan that. Right now, the online option is up to 359 students in the district, and that's pretty equally divided, around 25%, give or take a few percentage points at each building. We have about 137 students right now opting out of transportation. I think this will surprise no one that the majority or over 50% of those students are high school students who probably opt out of transportation anyway and drive to school. So they're just telling us they're not going to take a bus this year. I've gotten the question is, why do we have to do this now? Why do we have to decide we don't have all the information that we need? I think as this thing changes, we're providing the best information we have at the time. And things are changing, like I said, rapidly. But as somebody said to me today, it's kind of like an RSVP for the party. You have to at some point begin planning and locking things in. And a schedule is a balancing act. In order to get the high school schedule run, we have to schedule all the online learners first. so that those sections are scheduled. At the elementary, we have to look at how many students so that we can pull them out of the in-person classrooms and understand where our numbers are. So there's a lot of details that have to happen between now and the start of school. The calendar has been talked about a lot in various capacities. We have made some adjustments, but with our contracted days and hours, we still have to meet minimums in our state calendar, and they haven't changed all those things. If we have in-person learning, we still have to meet the minimum number of minutes. And so if we take a whole lot of days out on the front end and something else happens, we may not make our minutes, and then we have to go into makeup. So that first week, we've allowed a lot of flexibility so that it's more PD for staff than normal, but we have students reporting. If we do end up reporting, because as we know, things are changing rapidly and we could end up in a situation where everybody is remote. So we hope to have all classrooms started by August 24th. Now, if there's something that I think we can't get done, we have a meeting August 4th where we can adjust that calendar. Most schools are either starting that week of August 24th or they're going the next week into August 31st, that September 1st, 2nd area. So, you know, there's a couple going after Labor Day, but it's not a consistent across the board, everybody starting on the same day. One of the things we heard about over and over again is the rigor of the online learning. And we want to assure families that students will be connecting with those teachers daily, whether elementary, middle school, or high school. Madison Middle School and Madison High School will have a dedicated sections of online learning. I do not think it's in anybody's interest, teacher or student, for teachers to try and work with kids in a classroom and have them deal with students remoting in. I think there will be way too many challenges to that. I taught middle school for 9 years, and you need to keep your eye on your classroom the whole time, no matter how many students are in there, because middle school students, they're curious and, you know, they try things. So then if you're dealing with the remote kids, you know, you may have other issues to deal with. So for good, strong instruction, we're not blending models at this point. Now, if we had a student that was sick or something, we've talked about where they would stay with their class and they could Zoom in for the purpose of that class, but not on a consistent long-term basis. Another question we've had is, well, if I don't like the in-person model, can I go to remote? And again, this is all numbers based. So everybody, when they've committed to what they've committed to at the end of this week, that's where they're at for the semester. Another thing that we've gotten questions about is the reliability of the temperature checks or parents checking the symptoms in the morning. While we know this isn't the most ideal method, after listening to Mike's presentation, we don't have a lot of resources where we can devote time to having every student walk through some of these thermoscans. Those are quite expensive, checking the doors. So we know that that is somewhat of a risk. We are working with the health department to ensure that we limit that risk. And we're talking about having, when they come into the building in their first block class, they're doing a symptoms check signing off, and we're working with Infinite Campus. Dave, you've talked about that. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? What the thought is behind that?
Or one option to ensure that everyone who's working in the building has a daily check-in on any kind of symptoms would be to, the first thing that opens up on your computer screen is going to be a survey that everyone would fill out. I don't have a temperature. I don't have any of the following symptoms associated with COVID. I have not been exposed to anyone with a known COVID case and that kind of thing. And a 5-minute check-in and everybody is kind of reporting out all's well. If somebody does come to school and start to develop symptoms, then we would go into a different protocol.
So we are really encouraging the parents when they're sending their children to school in the morning to be diligent. We need that support. We need that partnership. We realize that these symptoms, because we've gotten a lot of questions about that, are similar to other viruses, colds, flu, and allergies. So we are working with medical professionals to provide the best guidance on how we deal with those situations, because not every cough is COVID, not every sneeze is COVID, not every migraine might be COVID. And so we have to have good guidance on that to help keep our students and staff safe. As far as communicating when there are cases, we truly have to take the direction of the health department on that communication plan. And we are working currently with that with the health department on what that process will look like. Will it be an all-call communication? It depends on how many, people that individual was in contact with within the building. Would it be a whole shutdown of sanitation? And again, we take that guidance directly from the health department because they are the experts in public health. And trust me, I want to be as transparent as possible within the law. So we're going to do our due diligence. Attendance will be a factor in both the online and in-person school every day. In fact, ODE has come up with new attendance requirements and how we track attendance for the year. So we are in the process of reviewing those. Nurses will be trained how to isolate potential cases, and we are developing backup rooms with negative airflow to ensure students are safe there. This is the one that everybody wants to know what the decision is on. And I have talked to so many other people. We are probably a little ahead of the curve in even having our band meeting last night. But I talked to the Willoughby superintendent this afternoon and I said, well, what are you doing about band and choir? And he said, we haven't figured that out yet. And that is because respiratory particle projection is a key factor in making this decision. If you remember the early cases of COVID-19 out in Washington state, one of the big places where it spread the first time was in a choir. And so how do you bring together people safely to sing when they're projecting and letting out respiratory droplets? And those are the questions that we're still wrestling with and tackling. And it may come that for the first semester, we do some other things with our music personnel and offer other activities. We just don't have good answers yet. Face coverings, we are requiring face coverings, and honestly, social distancing is not the only factor, because the more you learn about COVID-19, and it changes all the time, it stays in the air. And so face coverings are a good protection from keeping it to be transmitted and spread. We will provide breaks. We will let kids go outside. We will have sanitizer. As Mike said, we have already purchased 660 gallons of it. We will, teach our students how to properly wash their hands. In kindergarten, because they're at tables, we're going to have plexiglass, the sneeze guards dividers on the table, so that we know those students can't necessarily keep that mask on in an all-day environment. And that was another big switch of our plan. We went to all day, every other day, kindergarten in cohorts, because we didn't want to have to worry about having to sanitize the room in between. Transportation is another concern. But again, right now, if you look at the numbers, we have almost 500 people that will not be taking part in transportation. So that should limit the numbers on the buses at the time. So we're working on that. routes will not be available till August 4th. And we will post those online this year. They will not be in the newspaper setting because we have to board approve the routes and we don't have them set yet because we're waiting on this information with the transportation survey. We are working on a policy with Neola for face coverings because we're supposed to have that. And like I said, we are working with a medical professional to work on a variety of training videos and scenarios to help keep everyone safe. Preschool is the one area that we're still working on and still trying to get guidance on. We are under numbers that have to stay in effect till October 1st. Our preschool director, Jovette Hiltonen, is working on how that will impact us and making sure we can get preschool up and running. And then again, all of this is subject to change as the levels in Lake County change. We're looking at the red level, what that would look like if we're red. As a region, we're having conversations about possibly starting online for everyone if we're at the red. I don't have that direction yet. We're still talking to the health department in this situation. The purple level, everybody would be on full-on remote learning. So, and that's a no-brainer. And that is pretty much, I think, most of the questions that I have been getting. If there's something, I think people are asking about food service. We would continue for online in some way of offering our students who are online their food service if they're on free and reduced lunch. There would have to be a pickup. Lunches, for the most part, are in the classrooms. We're still finalizing that plan at the building level, but we're working on that. There's a lot of moving parts to this.
So Angela, can you address, I know I've seen this question numerous times where folks are confusing the difference between a grading period, a semester, and the year as far as what the commitment is, as far as whether you're going to do in-class participation or remote learning.
Remote learning, we're saying for the semester, which is 18 weeks, so it would be after Christmas, then you could opt back into, the regular school if the conditions change. If the conditions don't change, we will continue to do that option for our families. Again, we set a semester with the hope that we get a vaccine and that this thing slows down.
Angela, you mentioned the health department, consulting with the health department several times. I think it's also important to point out the different medical professionals that you've been consulting with, the occupational health doctor,
Yes.
that you've been consulting with, the professional medical cleaning team that you've been, so I think it's important for our parents to know that you have consulted with several professionals, not just the health department.
That is correct. We have been working with a company for the past, since probably last November, called MBD Medical. And they are rooted in actually disaster recovery cleanup, but they've gotten into a lot of occupational health type issues and are helping to develop protocols related to cleaning, transportation, all sorts of things related to COVID-19. And we have formed this partnership where they're helping us to develop these videos. They also have an occupational health doctor on staff that's actually a part of the company, and he is an expert in occupational health. He is through Hillcrest Hospital, and he also has privileges at University Hospital because there's only 5 of those doctors in the whole region. And Dave and I met with him and a group of from MBD Medical last Tuesday. And he will be available to answer our questions and on call as we go through this COVID-19. So I have a lot of resources that I'm working with.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think the other big piece of this we have to talk about is athletics. We are still waiting to get some direction on fall sports from the powers that be above. We were anticipating something this week. I don't know if we'll get it. And again, you know, there's a lot of conversation about the what ifs, because we don't even know if we'll be able to have large gatherings again. So, you know, would we have sports without fans and all of those types of things? We're just not sure. So,
What about our gym classes? Are we having traditional gym classes, or what are we doing with gym?
we're gonna have hopefully some teachers at the table to help develop what we can do safely. I know that I've had a couple people reach out, so we're trying to figure that out as well. Because movement is important. All right, Dave?
No,
Anything
I
to talk
don't
about
think
tonight
so.
or add?
now we've all been working on the same things. I don't think I have anything in addition to report. Very comprehensive.
I do want to also thank Mike. You know, we've sort of all tackled our little pieces of this, and I said one day, I said, you know what, I just need you to be in charge of PPE. Now, sometimes I muddle the waters and I tell Pat I need this, and then Mike goes, did we do this? And, you know, because there's so many pieces to this. And then the other piece, you know, he's working on is all the technology to ensure that we have the technology to make any scenario happen. So thank you, Mike. That's just too much talking, folks. I gotta get some water. Questions from the board? Any other questions? Well, then I'll roll into my recommendations. Under the recommendations tonight, we're asking you to accept the resignation of Eric Thomas, Madison North Elementary Assistant Principal, effective the end of the 2019-2020 contract year. To accept with regret the retirement resignation of Susan Chickarell, Madison South Elementary Head Custodian, effective January 1st, 2021, after 30 years of service to the district. We're asking you to approve an unpaid leave of absence for Carrie Blair, South Elementary School Educational Aid Playground for the 2020-21 school year. We're asking you to enter into the following employment contracts. Casual day-to-day substitute, Robert Roberts, and to employ Gary Himes under a long-term substitute teacher contract from August 17th, 2020 to December 22nd, 2020 to perform the duties of Jacqueline Rhodey. And that is it under the personnel motion.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I would like to add at this point that we are not going to replace Eric Thomas. We're going to adjust Jovette Hiltonen's duties to be halftime assistant principal, halftime pre-K director for the district. So this will be an administrative cut that will allow us to save some money, as we don't know what the state budget is going to do this year.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
John Douglas,
Yes.
vote is 3-0.
The next item is to appoint a delegate to the 2020 OSBA annual business meeting. And in the event a delegate cannot serve, somebody as an alternate.
All right, so this is for the board. We need to name a delegate, and
Can you point
Pat's
Mike Hallry?
not here, so it sounds like a Tim, is my guess.
So we name Mike, right? Pastor Mike. I named Pastor Mike.
I second that.
I high-fived you, Michelle.
All right. Well, you know,
Who's going to be the alternate when he decides he's not doing it?
The new board member.
right. All right, well, that was a joke when I suggested Pastor Mike, but so I'm willing to serve as the alternate in the event that apparently Pastor Mike is not available to do it. And we can renegotiate this if Mike is not willing to do it, but I think he would be interested. So I'm sure he'll be happy with me speaking for him. So I have
Never
a motion.
miss a board meeting. Never miss a board meeting.
There you go. So I have a motion for Pastor Mike. Does that include for me to be the backup?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Yes,
We have a second.
I second.
Any discussion?
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mike. And Sean.
Roll call.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
John Douglas,
Yes,
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Vote is 3-0.
I'll let him know. Okay, so Angela, you can continue.
Okay, next is to Madison Local School District is compliant with the regulations for all snack foods sold by adhering to the USDA Smart Snacks at School and Ohio's food and beverage standards sold as outlined in Senate Bill 210, or whichever is stricter.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
John Douglas,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Vote is 3-0.
All right, and this is just, official approval of the plan to reopen schools as presented and allow for modifications as need be throughout the course of the 2020-21 school year as dictated by COVID-19.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I know that you put in a tremendous amount of time, Angela. And Dave, you and Mike as well, and our principals, our assistant principals, everybody that has been involved. And I really appreciate all the time. I know that you've worked harder this year than you've probably worked any year in your career. So thank you very much.
It's been a dramatically different year.
For sure. For sure.
Other discussion? Roll call?
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
John Douglas.
Yes.
Vote is 3-0.
And the next item is to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Madison Education Association and the Madison Board of Education regarding the payment of sports supplementals for the 2021 school year as found in Appendix A.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
John Douglas,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Vote is 3-0.
All right, and on the consent calendar this evening, we have several items. The first is to approve a contract between Madison Local School District and Hogan Transportation for the transportation of students for the 2020-21 school year. To approve the contract between the Madison Local School District and Educational Alternatives to provide educational related services for students served outside of the MLSD for the 2021 school year. To approve the agreement between the Madison Local School District and the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio, Crossroads Health for the 2021 school year for the education and support of students placed in their district. To approve the agreement between Madison Local School District and the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio for audiology and/or hearing impaired services for the 2020-21 school year. And to approve the food service prices for the 2021 school year And I'm not going to read them all, but I will say that there is no increase over last year.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I just actually have one quick question, probably for Mike. For example, with any of these contracts, but especially say, for example, the transportation contract, if things get shut down again and there is no transportation, is this contract able to be renegotiated?
We aren't signing any contracts that hold us to pay for services that aren't being provided. That includes CBS, Hogan Transportation, the nursing, all of those subcontractors. If they aren't able to provide service, we either don't pay or negotiate a lesser amount.
Okay, so is that if they're not able to provide service through no fault of their own? Meaning if we get shut down?
That would be what we did this year. The contracts are the same, except for CBS has a renegotiation clause. Contracts are the same. They get paid for transporting a student a certain amount per day. If that student isn't transported, they don't get paid for that day.
Very good, thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes,
Gene Sensi. Did Gene vote?
I don't think she can hear you.
Gene,
I said yes.
Oh, vote is,
Sorry.
vote is 3-0.
All right, we will now open the second public participation portion for this evening. This is on any item. Participants would have 5 minutes to address the board. State your name and address.
Okay, so we're going to do the same drill. I'm going to unmute all. If you have something going on you don't want us to hear, get ready to mute yourself. Oops, hold on. Different button. Okay, everybody should have the ability to unmute themselves.
Do you also want to ask them to state their name and address?
Okay. I have a question. Do we just raise our hand?
Go ahead. Please state
My
your name
name's-
for the board, and then you can continue.
Oh, okay. My name's Brianne Walker. My address is 3158 Bates Road in Madison. And do I just go ahead with my question?
Mhm.
Okay, so I have a second. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have a daughter going into second grade and my son is going to be a kindergartner. I have a question that's personal to me, a lot of Madison parents. My son has special needs. He has an ASD, ADHD diagnosis that involves a lot of sensory issues. We learned about that through the pre-K. There was a lot I didn't know and wasn't aware of. They've been amazing. So shout out to Madison pre-K staff. So my question, obviously, I have been working with my son and I understand the importance of the mask and safety, but social interaction for him, speech therapy, OT, things you won't get at home aren't something I can provide. I know the governor said under second grade, but as of now, even though I've enrolled him, I am being told that if he cannot wear a mask, and I'm trying, I'm working with him, and we're moving forward like he's going to school. I've ordered the head thermometer, looking for supplies, but if he can't wear a mask, am I understanding then that he cannot go to school or ride the bus? And again, he has an official neurological diagnosis, and that's my question.
So I think we've announced in the beginning that the way we were going to handle these things is when folks have questions that are specific to their child or grandchild or any of those things, that we will follow up with you individually. So the best scenario so that we can answer your question and make sure you get an answer is for you to email our superintendent and she will make sure you get an answer to that very specific.
Okay,
But as a second grade teacher, I would really be interested to hear some of this discussion as well. Because I very well may have your son, Brianne. It's nice to meet you. What school?
Nice to meet. He'll actually be at South, and that was kind of my point. I was told that Madison actually has a very high population of special needs children, more so necessarily than surrounding areas. I don't know, I can't remember where I heard that information, but he will be going into kindergarten at South Elementary. And I just know it hasn't been addressed elsewhere.
Okay. Well, I hope you get the answers that you need.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you.
Okay, we've also announced that that Superintendent Smith is going to be having numerous meetings with staff to address some of their questions specifically. I'm sure this question can bleed over into those questions as well.
And I know it's ever changing, so I appreciate everything you guys are doing right now. I know it's a lot.
Thank you. Wishing to address the board?
What's that?
Oh,
Okay.
Leah, I've unmuted you. Or I've asked you to unmute. You'll have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hello, I have a question.
State your name and address, please.
Sure, my name is Stacy Arnell. The address is 5958 Shore Drive. And the question I'm asking is just for clarification. If parents choose the online option for the first semester, are they required to opt out of the bus at that time as well? And if in January we choose to opt back in, is there a way to advise transportation that then we'd want to be eligible for that again? So I just would like some clarification in regards to that. Thank you.
Thank you. So that sounds like another question that we can add to the frequently asked questions onto the district's website.
Easily. That's an easy one.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to address the board? I thought I saw Leah Turner waving her hand as though she wanted to address the board. So the name appears to be Leah Turner, but we might need an address. Thank you.
Yes, it's Leah Turner, 35 West Main Street, Madison. And I'm a teacher at South Elementary, but I also have two little girls coming in to kindergarten and to second grade this year. First, I'd just like to say that I really appreciate all the work that I know you guys have done. I know that you never imagined, none of us ever imagined we would be preparing for school like this year. And I also want to say that I would never want to have to make the decisions you have to make. But I also wanted to just share one personal perspective. And I know, like I know Angela said, I think that you have good reasons for not wanting to push back more the start date. I don't feel like I think that the current things that are happening, a lot of things can change in the next month. I just always assumed my kids would come to school with me, like all along. We've just prepared them. We've always prepared them saying, you know, we don't know what it's going to look like. It's going to be a really different year and we're going to be okay with that. And my daughter, my second grader, has been so excited for school. I actually have told people that when I told her that we are going to be able to go back to school, she said, she's like, I don't care how long we're there. I'm just happy we get to go. And that just showed me how much she wants to be in the classroom. And I know a lot of students do, but I know that it's finding what is the best decision for us. And I guess my thinking is I'm most concerned that if we jump in too early, I know there's only a few schools who have not put their date. I'm wondering why we can't be one of the districts that's kind of holding back a little bit and waiting a little bit longer and watching around us what's happening. I mean, we're already seeing some schools that are going back and some issues. So that's my personal concern. And I know that I am now reconsidering if we are going to have our daughters come into the classroom, which is hard for me. And I know that we're still trying to figure out what the best thing for our family is, because everybody has to make those decisions. And I didn't think that I would find myself in that situation. Lydia has already picked out they picked out their first day of school dresses online this year, and they came in the mail today, actually. But I guess I know I appreciated how, Angela, you guys erred on the side of caution when we had to pull out, and we didn't even go back. The teachers didn't even go back to get our stuff together. You've erred on the side of caution. I'm just wondering why we wouldn't want to err on the side of caution and consider to go back. I mean, I know that we're concerned. We want to get back in probably in case we do have to go out, and we want to get back into those routines and teach the kids. And I think that most of us feel we really want to be back in the classroom as teachers. And I know as a first grade teacher, I want to be in with my students, but I also don't want to make the wrong decision. If we have to decide to go back a little bit later, I don't understand why it's not something we wouldn't consider. I would rather us be wrong. In my opinion, I would rather us be wrong in like losing those days, and we have to make up those days later, than to find out we go back when, like, a lot of other schools are going back early, and then to find out that someone does come down with a case and there is an issue. And I really believe that we could go back and probably we're not going to have any problems in Madison, but just for the slight chance that it could happen, that's kind of why I am like reconsidering. And it's really because of the fact that I feel like we should be pushing it back. I feel like we should be waiting a little bit longer. And I know we have to go back eventually, but I guess those are just my personal concerns I wanted to share. But thank you. And thank you for the work you're continuing to do, everybody.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board?
John, we do have one person who keeps, I mute because we're getting background, but they keep unmuting. Vicky, I don't know if she wanted to say something. I don't know Vicky who, it's just Vicky. Oh, and she's muted. Okay.
Okay, well, we can leave it open again for another minute or so for anyone else wishing to address the board.
So again, my only concern is once people have remuted themselves, they cannot unmute. So anybody who doesn't have a video, we don't have a way to unmute them unless you want me to do the unmute all again one more time. Up to you.
Can't hurt, Mike.
All right. So anybody who wants to unmute should be able to. And I only see one person who has left themselves unmuted, and that's a phone number.
So
I'd
while
like
you're
to ask a general question. My name's Shar Smith. My address is 6852 Byron Road, Madison. My husband has 2 jobs. So he is being exposed to people that are positive. We take the proper precautions for him, but when that happens, would all of my children be required to stay home from school as well, even though they have not actually had that contact?
I'm writing this down because I want to get that question from the medical experts.
Okay, for example, he works as a server as one of his jobs. So he's out there a lot in the community. And there has been instances where people are testing positive. So I, of course, don't want to send my kids to school with even a chance of something like that, you know, happening to anyone.
For clarification, may I ask a question? When you say that he has come in contact, has the health department actually told him that he has to quarantine?
No, they have not.
Okay. 'Cause
He
I
has
think
just
that's-
been told by his employers that other people at his work were positive.
Okay. So
And
Angela,
I'm
when
sure
you-
that that's something that will probably happen to a lot of families, you know, with cases being popping up more frequently and whatever. Like if that's something that, like you said, if they're told to quarantine by the health department, you know, one measure be taken. Shh, okay. It's just, you know, something to think about.
Correct.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. Our plan calls for the health district to be consulted in almost all these scenarios where we have any potential exposure and we have to make decisions. You know, we're going to consult the experts each and every time and follow up with those.
Right.
Thank you. All right, so at this point, we'll close the second public participation portion for the evening. We do have a need for executive session. Number 1, I believe it is, appointment, employment.
I'm sorry, did I miss something?
Maybe I cut out. Did I?
Okay,
You did.
okay.
We did, okay. So we'll now close the second public participation portion for the evening. And I know we have a need for executive session. Is that for number 1?
That would be correct.
So do we have a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public employees or regulated individuals, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or regulated individual unless such person requests a public hearing?
Before we get a motion in a second, do we also need it for number 4? Angela?
I don't know if that's that or if it'd be tied to number 1. So go ahead and
Okay.
put 4 in there. I mean, we might as well.
Okay, and we'll also say then for also the purpose of preparing for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees. Looking for a motion?
Are you looking for a motion?
Yes, please.
I move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? We plan to conduct business when we return from executive session.
We don't plan to conduct business?
We do not.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Nope.
Roll call?
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
vote is 3-0.
We now,
Okay, anybody left in the meeting? I'm sorry, Sean.
Go ahead.
I stepped over you.
but we now stand in recess. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so anybody who's not going into executive session, I will move them to a waiting room, and then since there's no additional business being conducted, they can leave the meeting, and at the end, I'll just hit end and it'll